A filter is a temporary display of information based upon selected criteria. So for my project here, what criteria do I want to set that filters in or only shows those tasks, like those tasks that have slipped? Because, maybe not all the tasks, but some of the tasks that have slipped may have caused the project end date to get pushed out. Well, what's my project's end date? The original plan, the baseline plan. To find that out, you need to come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Properties group, click on Project Information, come down here, click on Statistics, and whew, that took a lot of clicks. I'm tired. Let's go ahead and close out and instead add the Project Statistics command to the Quick Access toolbar so I can just click on it and not have to click on the Project tab, Project Information, and so on. So go ahead and give it a right click and go down to Customize the Quick Access toolbar. Click on the drop down arrow and choose All Commands and scroll to Project Statistics. There it is. Double click on it to add it over to the right. I'm going to go ahead and select it and bump it down so it comes after the redo command. Click Okie dokie. There it is, that little line like you see in one of those monitors that shows the heartbeat. Go ahead and click on it and there's the heartbeat of the project. And you can see here that the original plan, well, there's the baseline. Go ahead and eyeball it over here to the finish column. Was supposed to finish on October the 15th, but due to some of the tasks being delayed, pushed out, or slipping, it's now finishing on October the 19th. So let me close out. What I want to find out here is what tasks have slipped, and then after that I can determine which tasks are causing the project to be pushed out. So to apply a filter, come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Data group, and you can see the little funnel there, the filter. So we want to be able to take everything up above and put it through the funnel and say we just want to see. Well, we don't want to see critical. We want to see those tasks that have slipped. So if you don't see it up here, come down here and click on More Filters. Then go ahead and scroll down, and we're looking for slipping tasks. There it is. Double click, and it only shows those tasks that have slipped, either by a day, 2 days, or more. And you can see that even though these tasks have slipped, which by the way, notice that over here in the table, it has 0, then it has 6, so tasks 1 through 5 haven't slipped, so they're hidden. Again, the definition of a filter is a temporary display of information. It doesn't delete the task, it just hides them or filters them out and just filters in those tasks that have slipped. So 1 through 5 are okay, they haven't slipped. Tasks 6, 7, 8, and then we go from 9 to 13, and those tasks haven't slipped, so from 14 on till the end of the project, these are the tasks that have slipped that cause the project's end date to be pushed out. Okay. In fact, if you want, you can come up here and right click on the table header cell and go down to Variants, and then come over here and click and drag the split bar over, and you can see the baseline start and the baseline finish, and you can click and drag these. Click on the column header to select the entire column, and then with the 408 arrow, you can see it right there. You can click and drag that, and I'm going to put it in front of the start. So I've got my original plan and then what's actually happening, and then let's go for the original plan baseline finish, click and drag to what's actually happening with the finish, and then I can compare between the two. So here's the original, and then here's what actually happened. It's out a day, original, it's out a day, and then on the task 15 it looks like it started the same day, but for the original plan as far as finishing, we were supposed to finish on the 8th, but it got bumped out to the 12th. And the finish variance was 2.5 days, and since then it's just been knocking everybody else out. The task that's related to its predecessor, each task that's connected here from 14 down to 24 like a domino effect and pushing out the project end date. So it finishes on October the 19th, a Tuesday. Now you notice that when I went to a different table, it didn't change the filter here. It's still slipping tasks, but if I come over here and right click on the view bar and go to a different view like the tracking Gantt, select that, notice that the filter has been cleared. Okay, you can click on it and go back to filtering it for slipping task again, double click, and there you go. So now you get the slipping task in the tracking Gantt view. And then to turn it off in this view, just go ahead and select no filter, or click on the drop down arrow, and selecting no filter is as good as clearing the filter. Okay. Setting an interim plan will take a snapshot or a copy of your start and finish dates of all the tasks that you have in your project after your project has begun, and up to 10 interim plans can be saved and set as stages throughout your project's timeline to go back and compare against your baseline with. Now, if it sounds like setting an interim plan is a lot like setting a baseline, let me go over the differences by coming up here. On the Quick Access toolbar, I added the command project statistics. And as you recall in setting a baseline training video, that when you set it, it'll take a snapshot of all these 5 fields here. Or setting an interim plan just takes a snapshot of the start and finish. Okay, let me close out. Now, why would you want to go ahead and set an interim or interim plans? See if this makes sense. If my project's end date, the baseline for it that is to finish on October the 19th, if I set interim plans along the way, I can take a look at that point in time and say, okay, here's interim plan 1, compare it against the baseline, and I can see that, okay, no delays. Interim plan 2, maybe no delays. Interim plan 3, for those tasks is where we really got pushed out. And was it because we had resources that we didn't use before? Maybe they're not as good. In any case, you can go ahead and go to that point in time by looking at those set interim plans. Now, you don't need to set a baseline in order to set your interim plan, but to me it only makes sense to set a baseline before you begin your project so you can later compare your interim plans against. So if you haven't set your baseline, then go ahead and do it, but I already have mine set. And to verify that it's been set, we want to come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Schedule group, click on the Set Baseline drop-down arrow, click on Set Baseline, and if your baseline says last saved, then it was set, okay? And coincidentally, in the same window is where you go to set your interim plans. So before we go ahead and set it, let me click Cancel. Make sure you click the Save button before you set your interim plans, which obviously would make sense because if you didn't save your work before you saved your interim plan, you'd be saving something prior to your change, if you made any changes. Because remember, interim plans are going to take a snapshot of your actuals here for your start and finish dates. So when we set our first interim plan, if we haven't made any changes, then I guess it doesn't matter, but in any case, I recommend always saving it before you set it, and then come up here and click on Set Baseline, go to Set Baseline, because we need to go through the baselines to get the feature to set the interim plan. And we're going to always copy from the actual start and finish fields, which you can copy from other fields, but for this training video, we're going to keep it simple. And we're going to copy it into our interim plan fields. Now, the interim plan 1 includes both the snapshot of the start field and the finish field, but it will be distinguished by start 1, finish 1 for interim plan 1, and then interim plan 2, 3, and so on. So the default is going to be interim plan 1, so let's go ahead and select it, click OK, and it's saved. Now let's go ahead and make some changes and then set our second interim plan. So let's go to task 7, and you can see over in the Gantt chart the black progress bar. When you hover over it, Writer in the pop-up has a 50% completion of the task. Let's go ahead and mark it as 100% by right-clicking on the task, and in the mini formatting toolbar, click on 100%. And let's say over here in the actual start column, or the date for this task, that they actually didn't start until a day later on the 9th, okay? And let's go to the next task, and let's go ahead and right-click on that, and go to 100%. And then let's go ahead and be sure to save this before we set our second interim plan, so we're not setting it to something prior to the change, because if we didn't save it and we set it, then it wouldn't include the change here, okay? So come up here, click on Set Baseline to set baseline, click on Set Interim Plan. We're still going to copy the actuals here, the actual start and actual finish fields, but not into Interim Plan 1, but into the Interim Plan Start and Finish fields 2 for the entire project, and click OK. As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to set interim plans, which contains both the start and finish dates, the actuals at that point in time that we took a snapshot of, so we can later on compare it against the baseline plan of its start and finish dates for the project of each task. And here I want to show you how you can view those interim dates and also the baseline dates so you can compare and contrast between the two. Now, you could go to any table, as you recall in earlier training videos, to insert a field. Just come up here and right-click on any column header, go down to Insert Column, and then for Interim Plan 1, it contains both the start and the finish dates. So Start, and for 1, there's Start 1. And then we'd right-click the next column next to it to insert the finish for that interim plan, which is Finish 1. So Interim Plan 1 has a snapshot of the Start 1 and Finish 1 dates at that point in time that we set the interim plan. Now, to compare this against the baseline, you'd right-click on any column header to insert the baseline start. There it is, select it, and then we'd insert the baseline finish, and then you'd go back and forth and go, okay, from the original plan, what happened in the interim plan for the starts? Did we start on time? let's see, for task 3, looks like the original plan was the 31st and we started a couple of days later, September the 2nd. Now, the problem I find with this is that if I've got a lot of interim plans, or maybe I don't, but just a few, to insert these and then go, okay, I'm done with this, then to right click to hide them and then go, oops, okay, I need to look at them again, right click and insert that column again. It's just too time consuming. So what I want to do here is I want to show you how you can create a custom table and dedicate that table to viewing and comparing your interim dates with your baseline dates, okay? Sound cool? All right, let's do it. Let me go ahead and click and drag to select these two columns, hit the delete key on the keyboard, and then to create a custom table, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can either come up here on the View tab, go to the Data group, click on the Tables drop-down arrow, and go to More Tables, which is the long way to get to the More Tables window. Click Cancel. Better yet, you can just go ahead and right-click on the table header cell, that blank cell there, and go down to More Tables. A lot easier, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a copy of one of the tables here. It's going to be the baseline, because in that table it's got two of the fields that I want already in my custom table, which is the baseline start and the baseline finish, the original plan start and finish dates. So I'll go ahead and select that and click on Copy. Opens up the table, gives me a generic name, and then a list of all the fields that are in that table. So let me go ahead and give it a name, and we'll type in baseline and interim dates by KK, okay? And then over to the right, I want to show it in the menu, because when I right-click next time on any table header cell, I want to see it right there and not have to go to More Tables to be able to select this, okay? And then down below it has all the fields that are in this table that we made a copy of. And let's see, I just want the start and finish dates, okay, for the baseline. I don't need the estimated duration, delete that. I don't need the work or cost. So you can select it, hit the delete key on the keyboard, or click on Delete Row, and baseline cost, delete row. Then I can go ahead and insert my interim plans, click on the drop down arrow and type in start. There we go, start 1 for interim plan 1. Click below that. Start, well, let's go here 2. And then below that, finish. If I keep typing, and it's going to be 1. Finish, let's click on the drop down arrow, make sure, well, it probably didn't get typed in correctly here. Let me type in F, finish 1, okay. Then go down a little bit further so I can get in finish 2. And let me click on the drop down arrow so I can bring it up and select finish 2. Notice that this is going to be the order, as you're looking at from top to bottom, that it will be in the table from left to right. So it'll be baseline start, then baseline finish, then start, start, finish, finish. I want all my starts together, but I'll leave it like this so I can show you that after you insert it, how you can come back and modify it, or you can modify it within the table. In any case, we'll leave it as is. And then after I insert them here, I can come over here in the title field, and if I want a little bit more definitive description in the column header of what that field's about, in other words, the title of that column as you see up here in this column, task name, I can go ahead and say for start 1, after I select the title cell for that start 1 here, that field, I can type in interim start 1, hit enter, and that will be, and interim finish 2. Cool, and then hit enter. Then when I'm done, go ahead and click OK. It's right there. Just go ahead and click apply, and hey, there you go. Cool. Let me go ahead and click and drag the split bar over so I can see my table. First of all, you can see the column headers. The titles are what I typed in the title field. Instead of in that pop-up, you can see where it says start 1. You can see that the title of it that I gave it is interim start 1. Let me hover between the two column headers until I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then I can double click really fast to do a best fit for that entire column so I can see everything in there. And these pound symbols means that there's more data than we can see within the cell. So we need to go ahead and double click in between those column headers, and towards the end of this one double click, and okay, there we go. So I can compare against the baseline, the start, the original plan, to the first snapshot in time, maybe a week later, and go, okay, interim start 1. Well, the problem is I'm jumping back and forth, and I don't know about you, but when I go from one date and I see something else and go to another, it gets a little bit tough. So if I go ahead and click on that column, select it, I can click and drag that over, and let's put it right there. So I have the original plan, then the first interim plan, the second, then I have the original baseline plan for the finish, then the first interim plan for finish 1, then finish 2. So that works. Then I can just come over here and go, let's see, okay, for the baseline, Ooh, examine software. It was August the 31st. Interim Plan 1 said it didn't start until the 2nd. And then we can come down here and compare between the two. Then I can come over to Interim Start 2 and compare against the baseline, or click and drag and move it over. Or if I want, I can say, okay, from this interim plan to that one, is there any difference between the two? And I don't see any yet until this was supposed to start on Wednesday, and then in Interim Plan 2, at that point in time, it started on Thursday, so it was delayed at Interim Plan 2. And then you can go over the finishes. Now, to go ahead and make edits to the table, you can come over here and right-click again on the table header cell, go down to More Tables, go ahead and select the name and click on Edit and make changes to it. You can make changes in here if you don't want to do it within the table, and selecting a row, let me go ahead and scroll down, and cutting it and moving it to a blank row and clicking Paste. That's how you go ahead and move them around. In any case, you can go ahead and make your changes here, and then when you're finished, I'm not going to save it. I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. And if you want to get rid of the table, just come into this window here, click on Organizer, and go ahead and select it from the current project file that you have open, which is Spiffy Software Training Manual. You can see here Spiffy Software. You can delete it from that and always have it available in every new project that you create in the global template, or you can delete it from both, from the global template and from this file as well. Okay. So if I go ahead and try to delete it from this file, because it's in use, it won't let me do it. But if I did, after I get out of it and I'm no longer in use, and I have a bunch of other files that the baseline interim dates is not available in, well, you can go ahead and select it and copy it over. In any case, we'll go over this a bit more in detail about the organizer here. Not too complicated, just what you see in the template. You can make it available in the current project file that you have open. Okay. Go ahead and click Cancel, and then to get back to my original view when I'm done with this, right-click, go to the entry, and there you go. Makes it a lot easier when I want to go ahead and view those interim plans without having to insert all those fields. Just right-click for a change, and right-click to change back. Creating a custom report can be really handy, especially when you may not need additional information from the standard reports, or you find one lacking therein. So to go ahead and create a custom report, come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Reports group and click on Reports. And there it is. Double-click on Custom, and then click on New. And for these custom reports, you can base it upon one of these four types: Task, Resource, Monthly Calendar, or Crosstab. Let's go ahead and base it upon Task and click OK. And then first off, on the Definition tab, let's go ahead and give our report a name besides the generic Report 1 and call it the Baseline. The Baseline and Interim Dates Report by KK. Now, you can do it for the entire project, or say for weeks out of the project and count up the weeks. I'm going to go ahead and do the entire project. And for the table, whatever table is available, including any custom tables that you created, as you recall in the previous training video, we created the Baseline and Interim Dates by KK, the table. I'm going to go ahead and select that, which is pretty cool when it comes to creating custom reports. If you can create your custom tables, you can go ahead and create a custom report based upon that table. And then for filtering, right now it's going to show all the tasks, or you can say just show those tasks in progress or incomplete. I'm going to click off and leave it as is. And I want to show the summary tasks in my task report. Like you can see here, the summary task and the subtask, the summary task, subtask. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and for the text, for my summary task, the item that I want to change, let me click on it, the summary task. After I have it selected, you can see that the standard size that it's going to print in the report is going to be kind of small. So let me go ahead and change it first to Arial, the font type, and let's make the size larger, maybe in bold, because I would like those summary tasks to stand out as you see over here in the table, and then click OK. Now, as a warning, these custom reports will not work if you have not upgraded your Office to Service Pack 1. Even at best, when you upgrade, I still find some bugs. So having said that, let's go to the Details tab. If you want to go ahead and include task notes, objects, predecessors, assignments, and if you want to sort them, like by ID, ascending, descending, condescending, in any case, never mind. Let's go back to the definition. Looks good here. Click OK. And then with it selected, you can double click on it or click Select, and there's the report. Click on it to zoom in, and Oh, this is horrifying. Look at that. I've got my summary task, research phase, and it's got this gap between its subtasks, and then also it has the next summary task joined in with those subtasks. So you can see there's still some bugs here that I haven't experienced in earlier versions of Project. If you watch my Project 2007 training videos on creating a custom report, it doesn't show this. In any case, hopefully it works for you and you get the latest update. Let's go ahead and make some more customizations to the report. Click on Page Setup, and let's go to the Page tab. And if you need to shrink up the text on the page, because maybe down below it has page 1 of 2, and you want to include all the text on one page, you might be able to squeeze it by reducing the size, the text size that is, and I'm going to reduce it to 85%. I don't want to reduce the text size so it's so small that I need a magnifying glass to read it when I print it out, so keep that in mind. And then for the margins, maybe reduce that instead of 3/4 of an inch margin to a 1/2 an inch. And then for the headers, you can see up here up at the top over to the right hand side in the center header has, well, it's got the coding down here, the name of the report, and you can see it's baseline and interim dates report by KK, and then the date, the project title, the manager, and the manager is pulling from, let me click cancel. When you click on the info tab and you go to project information to advanced properties, there's the manager, there's the author, there's the title, that's where it's pulling its information from, okay? Let me go ahead and click cancel, go back to print, and you can see my report's still up. Let's go back to page setup, and then on the header tab, you can put something in the header section of the report. So if you had 5 pages, what you put in the middle, the center section here, will be duplicated on all 5 pages. Like I said, the report title and the date and so on. You can have it to the left-hand side of the header on each page at the top or the right-hand corner. Let's stick with the center here and show you how you can customize it. If I go ahead and delete all the coding here, you can see in the preview window there's nothing there. So if I print it off right now, of course there'll be nothing there. Let's go ahead and type in who it's for. Just go ahead and type in any information that you want repeated at the top in the center of each page. Hit enter. And if I want the project title, and I'm like, oops, didn't mean to delete some of the coding there. Let's add the project title. Come back down here, click on General, drop down arrow, and let's come up here, select project title, click add, and it adds it up there. I mean, well, it adds it down below, but you can see it's kind of scrunched up in the preview. It doesn't look pretty, but it'll look nice after we go ahead and generate the report. Just the preview, again, doesn't look good. And then hit enter, and let's also add the current date. Now you can hover over any one of these and you can see what they represent. Insert page number. In any case, you can do it there or click on the drop down arrow and see if you can find it here, like the project's current date. Select that, click add, and then let's hit enter below that. And we've got the project fields like percent complete. I mean, wow, you got a lot of fields including the baseline start, finish, actual work. Let's do percent complete as it's selected and click add. And you can see it just says 30%. So when I print the report off, 30% of what? Well, if I go ahead and add, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So you can type in the text, you can go ahead and add the coding that will pull in those fields, the dates, any project field that you can find here, okay? So that's what you can add up in the header section, either in the center, the left, or the right. I just want to do the center for the header, and then at the bottom of each page in the report, in the footer section, it's just the text page and then the actual page number. So what I want to do, if I want to add something more, I can go ahead and type in before it. And you can see up in the preview window, it's really tiny, prepared by Kurt Kershaw, space page 1. Well, let's hit enter so it's not on the same line. You can see 2 separate lines there. Let's do the report name. Click on the general drop down arrow. Select report name, click add, and then hit enter. So we've got the name of the report. You can see it right up here is going to be the name right there. So we've got prepared by, the name of report, page. Let's do in the bottom right hand corner of each page, let's say we've got a logo that we want to add. So to add an image, click on the insert picture here. And on my desktop in the exercises folder is my books. Double click on that. It adds the books. It gives you a preview of what it looks like there. And then we go ahead and click okie dokie, and looking pretty fancy. There's my books. Click on it to zoom in, click on it to zoom out. And there's the title of each page, if I had more than one page, of course. Click on it to zoom out, and then the footer of each page, prepared by, name of the report, and page 1. And then the next page would be page 2. and so on. Now, if I need to make any changes to my custom report, including deleting it, then come back up here, click on the File tab to go back to the front stage view where I last left off, which was on the Project tab. Go to the Reports group, click on Reports, click on Custom, select it, and there it is. Go ahead and click on Edit, make any changes you want, including the text, which was horrifying. Let's go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow for the summary task and go, you can't handle it. Let's go back to where you were, which I think was Calibri, I believe. Something really tiny. I think it was 8. Oh, that's really bad. Okay, let's go ahead and click OK. Click OK. And then with the report selected, select it. Click on it to zoom in. Well, let me click on it to zoom in over here, or I can scroll over. And there you can see that even though my summary tasks don't stand out like I would like them to, in bold for research phase, then the subtask, then outline phase, then the subtask. Like I said, it looks like it's a bug that project has even when you upgrade to Service Pack 1. And another bug that I think it has is notice that for the print specific dates only, if I go ahead and I scroll over and I'm looking at all the date ranges and I want to print something that's back into August, maybe the same, let me go back one, August 31st, the same day, it doesn't update the field here, and when I print it off, it still prints off everything. Like I said, I hope your update is better than mine, because mine's not taking as far as the customization of the date ranges that I want printed off, and also when I want the summary task to be customized, to be able to, stand out from the rest of the subtasks. And then, like I said, to go ahead and get rid of them, come up here, click on the File tab, go to the Reports group, click on Reports, double click on Custom, go to the Organizer, and you've got your custom report right there. Now, it's only available right now in the current project that I have open, which is Spiffy Software Training Manual. That's the name of the project, Spiffy Software. For the global template, for every new project that I create, if I want this to be available, this custom report, in all new projects that I create, then go ahead and select it and click on Copy, and it will be in any new project. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, delete it, just, are you sure? Yes. And just have it in this one, okay? And close out. A Crosstab report is a great way to create summaries of data in a spreadsheet style format. If you don't know anything about spreadsheets, then I recommend that you watch my Excel 2010 training videos. In any case, let me show you. Come up here, click on the Project tab, go to the Reports group, click on Reports, and we're going to go to Custom, double click, and click on New, and the report type is going to be Crosstab. Go ahead and select OK, and then for the name of the report, it's going to be my task and cost reports. Now here's the Crosstab section. So for my columns, it gives me the option of having it by weeks, days, months. Let's do months. And then for the rows coming this way, in fact, think of it like this. You see the table here? That's like a spreadsheet. Here are my columns here, and you can see my columns are going to be months, so those will be replaced in months. And then for my rows here, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to be tasks. It brought up costs, and that's what I want. You can choose others for the task, like fixed cost for each task. Let's go ahead and just leave it as cost. And I want to include the resources that are assigned to these tasks. So underneath the task, it'll have the resources assigned to them and also include the cost. Okay. Let's go to the Details tab, and I want to put lines in between my tasks so it doesn't have a task, the assigned resources, and then the next task with nothing to really separate that task, the resources assigned to it, and the next one. And then for the text, let's see, size 8 is pretty small for all of the text within the report. So let's go ahead and increase it to 10 is going to be a bit larger. Click OK, and we can go ahead and sort it by ID, or we can do it by any of the other fields. You can even type in the letter T and sort them by task calendar, task mode. If you do have it in task mode of automatically scheduling or manually, let's go ahead and click off. Ooh, I don't want to do it by task calendar. Let me go ahead and go back to ID. That works best for me. Then when I'm finished, let's go back to definition, make sure everything looks grizzly here. Looks good. Click OK. And then there's the task, and it doesn't have the ampersand. It's got a space in its place because project can't handle the ampersand signed here, or as a code it thinks it means it's going to be a space. so task and cost report, even though it doesn't have the ampersand. Go ahead and select it, and there we go. Let's take a look at it. Click on it to go to, well, page 1. It's page 1 of 2. Click on it to zoom in, and it's larger text. We've got the lines in between our tasks. We've got the task, the assigned resources, then we've got a line for the next task, its assigned resources, and is it doing it by month? Yep. So there's the cost for September for those tasks and the resources assigned to it. Let's go ahead and scroll over. So we've got the total for search internal documentation for these two resources that have been assigned to it. So that's what it means by crosstab. You can choose your column as far as time goes, weeks, months, quarters, years, and then also set for your rows how you want to cross and match and compare that up with the column here for the time, whether it's going to be by days, again, weeks or months, and get the totals here. The total for the task, and then broken down by resources assigned to the task. And then we can come down here and go down to page 2, and click on it to zoom out, and click on it to zoom in to see October finish up there. As you've already seen in the training videos, you have many fields that you can insert as columns here. Well, what if you want to create your own custom field to hold whatever information that you want to type in it? Let's say we want to do one for deliverables. And deliverables are things that need to be delivered. For example, task 7, creating an outline, writer 1 needs some documents in order to go ahead and do his job to complete the task. What I can do is I can go ahead and create a custom field, insert it over to the left-hand side here, or wherever I want within the table, and type in the documents that need to be delivered in order for this task to be completed. So to create this custom field, come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Properties group, and click on Custom Fields. Come up here and choose whether you want it for a task or a resource, then over to the right, the type of data that it's going to be within that field. Let's go ahead and keep it simple, text, and then over and down below you can see that you have, when I scroll down, up to 30 text fields that Project has in which you can customize or add data to. So for text 1, I don't know about you, but that doesn't remind me that that's a deliverables field. So go ahead and select it, come down here and click Rename, and type in the name that you want to use this field for, or the purpose of this field. And it's for deliverables. Go ahead and click OK, and then notice while it adds the name that you want to give it, it keeps its original name here. Because when you're done using this and you delete it, it recycles it and says, hey, text 1, so to speak, is now available. Well, it may not be available if you didn't rename it. You may be using it for something else, but in any case, you get the point. It recycles it and it doesn't delete the actual field. It just says, hey, this field is now in use. Okay. So go ahead and click on Rename, and then click OK, and that's it. Go ahead and click Okie dokie, and then to insert the custom field into your table, just right-click on any column header, go down to Insert Column, and then when it comes to finding that custom field, don't go by the name that you gave it because you're not going to find it. Remember, this is Project's field that you're borrowing or that you want to customize, so you have to go off its default name, which as you recall was text 1. So type in text, and there we go, text 1, and then in parentheses is deliverables. So from behind the scenes, Project says, yeah, you're going to go ahead and use this as deliverables, but this is the name that I see it as. Then after we go ahead and select it, and from the front end, Project says, I'll get out of the way. I'll go ahead and have the title, the name that you gave it, and then in that pop-up you can see in parentheses, it says, by the way, hey, this is my field here, and this is how I recognize it as text 1. So go ahead, after you insert it, go down to task 7 and type in your documents that need to be delivered to this person, writer 1, in order for them to complete the outline, which is Spiffy Document 1 and Spiffier Document 2. Hit Enter, and if the column's too wide, and you're like, wow, it's taking up a lot of space, and I don't have a 50-inch wide monitor, then come up here, hover in between the two column headers, and click and drag to pull it in, okay? And then if you're like, oops, I cannot see what's in that cell now, go ahead and hover over it. You get a pop-up, or go ahead and select it, and if you have the entry bar up, then you can read the contents therein. And as you recall, to bring up the entry bar, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, select Display, and there you go, check Entry Bar. Click OK, and there you go. Okay, let's go ahead and kick this up a notch. Let's create another custom field, but something with more functionality. Like for example, let me come up here and right-click on the table header cell, and change it from entry to work. And when I'm looking at these two columns here, comparing the actual work hours that came in versus the original plan, you can see up here it says baseline, but when you hover over it, it's the baseline work hours. That when I'm looking at task 3, you can see that what actually came in was 32 hours, which was below the baseline plan of 40 hours. Okay, down below here, we have something that's above. The actual that came in was 18 hours, which is 2 hours above the baseline of 16 hours. I don't know about you, but when it comes to comparing data back and forth, it's a lot easier for me if I have something graphically to go by. As you can see over here, it's easy to quickly identify where we're at in general as a summary than to come over here and go, okay, let's get really nitpicky. Let's see, this hour off by 2 hours, that one's off by 8 hours. I just want something that's a quick summary that says, hey, look, we're either above the baseline as far as the actuals are coming in, or we're below it. And then if it's above it, then I want to quickly go ahead and dissect it and come over here and compare the numbers. Otherwise, I don't want to sit here and scan through all this again, okay? Or maybe another project manager. I can help them out by setting this up, a custom field that has graphical indicators to get a summary of the project, and then according to, if we're above or below plans, whatever he finds important, can then go ahead and get analytical by seeing exactly how many hours we're above or below. So to create this custom field, come up here on the Project tab in the Properties group, click on Custom Fields, and then we already have deliverables for the Text1 custom field. Let's go ahead and select Text2 and rename that so we know what it's going to be used for. It's going to be the workload summary. So we can get a quick idea by graphical indicators that we're going to be inserting if we're below the baseline or above. Click OK, and we want to look up values. In other words, I don't want to type in text. I want to control the data input by me or by somebody else and say, look, you just can't type in anything. You have to choose between one of these values. So when I select lookup, I can go ahead and set those values where it's got to be above, hit enter, or below, hit enter. I'm controlling the data input. And then down below it says you can check this to use a value from the table as a default entry for the field. If nothing's checked and you just check that, then, well, it's going to be blank. The default will be blank. But if you want to say, okay, every task is going to be defaulted to above, select it and click on Set Default, and you can see it's in bold. But if you want to leave it blank and not set it, then, well, uncheck it, check it again, and the default value is going to be, well, neither one of these is in bold, so it's going to be blank. Close out, and then we're back to our main custom field screen. And so we can get the lookup values, and if I click OK, and I come up here and let's right click on the variance column and insert the custom field here, go down to insert column. And remember, you can't type in the name of the custom field that you gave to the custom field, which was workload summary. It's got to be the name that project has set for that field, which is text2. There it is, text2 in parentheses, the name that we gave it or assigning to it, workload summary. And then like I said, by default, it's all empty. And then I can come down here and say, okay, let's see, we're below the baseline. Select it. I control the input. They can't come in here and just start typing in text and hit enter and expect project to be happy because it doesn't go with the values that were set for that field. Now, I can look at this and go, okay, above and below, but I want something graphical that I can quickly identify and not have to read. I want a happy face if we're below and a frowny face if we're above. So to customize the field here, let me click off in another field so I can come back up here on the Project tab and click Custom Fields. We can go ahead and select that, and it still shows that it's in lookup. It's not changed, and it won't change unless we go ahead and select none or delete. And I want to come down here and say, instead of displaying the data of above or below, I want to set that data to equal certain graphical indicators. So click on graphical indicators and say equals, hit the tab key. The value, which was we set as above, is going to pull in this image. And click on the drop down arrow, and we got a frowny face. Oh, that's so sad. And then how about equals for the other value, which is below? And when we get below the baseline, we got a happy face. Let's go ahead and click Okie dokie and click Okie dokie, and oh, that's beautiful. And like I said, if it's above, oh, we're not too happy. So a quick summary that I can quickly identify or have somebody else who's perusing through my project and go, Kurt told me just to look at the frowny faces. I mean, he's not very professional. What kind of person talks about frowny faces? This is a professional project. Well, this gives him a quick overview of what task that needs to be viewed and scrutinized in more detail, and talk to the resource or resources that have been assigned to it and say, why are you over by a couple of hours? Or maybe they look at this and go, okay, it's a frowny, but a couple hours, that's not a big deal. Okay, let's go ahead and customize the workload summary and do it from a formula perspective. In other words, come up here, click on Custom Fields, select Work Summary, and instead of looking up a value, let's go ahead and change it to formula. Now, once we do that, it's going to say, hey, any existing data in this field is going to be thrown out because you're changing. And let's go ahead and click OK, select formula, and I'm going to insert a function. Now, if you watch my Excel 2010 training videos on functions, you'll have an idea what I'm talking about. The function that I'm going to be using is the if function. And you can see the syntax: if this expression or this test, and you type in the test, and I'll show you that in just a second, is true, then do this. If it's false, then do that. Let me go ahead and select it so it adds it up here. And let's come in here and delete expression or replace expression with a field. And the field that I want to look at, let me click on the field drop down arrow, is go down to work. And I want my actual work here. It does say actual work, but also we can use this field as well for actuals and say that if work is greater than, in other words, the baseline, which I gotta, hit the space bar, click on the drop down arrow, go back to work, and we go to baseline work, and we come up here and we select baseline work. See if this makes sense. If the actuals that come in are greater or more than what the original plan was, then if it's true, let's go ahead and double click and type over true with open quotes and say, oh poop. And if it's false, double click, type in good. Click OK. Existing data again in the summary fields will be deleted. Click OK again. And the graphical indicator that we used when we click graphical indicator is not above or below. Remember, it is oh poop, and that's good. And click OK, click OK, there we go. And you can see that you don't get any options to come in here, type in anything, or change the faces. It's a static formula. And here's the oh poop, the frowny face, and if you'd rather see the text because it's funnier than looking at the graphic indicators, then customize the field, set it to data, click okie dokie, and oh poop, that's funny, poop. And then one last thing that I want to show you how you can customize is a flag field. Come up here, click on Customize Fields. Let's come over here and click on the drop down arrow and do a flag. Now, a customized flag field is nothing more than just a field that you can customize and create and insert as a column based upon yes or no values. So if it's yes, you can have an icon if you'd like an icon or indicator of something in the color green, let's say, signifying that it's complete or that you're happy with what's going on with that task. Or if no, you can leave it empty or give it a red flag. So there we go, flag 1. And then we can come down here and do graphical indicators. And we can say that if it equals, and we can set the value, yes, then give it the image. I'm all about happy faces. And if it equals the value no, then we can say, give it, scroll down, frowny face and click OK, click OK. Insert that custom flag field, right click on it from variants, go down to insert, type in flag. We don't have a name for it, but we know it's flag 1. Select it. Everybody's frowny by default until we go ahead and change them. That, hey, that task has been completed, or that task has deliverables, and this task has had the deliverables handed to them, or whatever the meaning for that yes and no, or that happy and frowny face that you insert as a custom field could mean to you as far as the association with those tasks will be. So you can come back up here, custom fields, flag 1, rename it, type it in, complete, and click OK, and then it updates it here, complete deliverables. Okay. As you can see over here in the view bar, it says I'm in the resource sheet view, so I must be. In any case, I want to go over the cost rates table that are provided for the work and material resources, and they're used when multiple rates are to be charged by resources working on a task. So for example, if Writer 1 charges one rate on one task and a different rate on another task, how do I make that change? Do I come over here and update it from $15 an hour to, well, let's say another task is $18 an hour? Forget it. You don't want to do it in this column because this will apply to all the tasks. So if the first 5 tasks are 15 and I come in here and say for the next 5 tasks they're going to be at 17, if I change this to 17, then all the tasks in the project resource Writer 1 is going to be assigned at 17. So you don't want to lose money and do it that way. I guess you could come down here and say Writer 1, number 2 or part B or something, and assign that as the next rate for the other tasks. But I like to keep things organized and say, okay, let's just have one resource with a cost rate table that will update for different tasks that we can assign. Like for this task, it's going to be $15 an hour, and without updating this, the standard rate column, for another task it'll be $18 an hour, for another task 20. You get the idea. The other use for the cost rates table is like, let's say for varying costs, like the rise and fall of materials. Maybe a month into the project, glossy paper goes up to $50 a ream. In any case, you can go ahead and set the cost for your materials and your work at a certain point in time and say, okay, from this time forward, it's going to be at this rate. Like maybe Writer 2 is going to get a salary increase after a month into the project. So they'll be working at $15 an hour. Then when it hits a specific time, they'll be working at like maybe $20 an hour. So to go ahead and bring up this cost rates table for any resource here, your work and material resource types, that is, go ahead and give it a double click and go to the costs tab. By default, it's on the general tab. Just go ahead and flip to the cost tab. And you can see here that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different rates that you can set for this resource. The default rate has already been set when you typed it over here in the standard rate column for $15 an hour. And you can see it says default. So the letter A will be assigned to that resource that's assigned to any task. And then if we want to go ahead and say, okay, it's not $15 an hour for this task, then you can go ahead and choose another tab and say, okay, for other tasks, it will be at this rate. And you get up to an additional 4 here. Okay, so let's say for tab B, for certain tasks, he's going to be charging maybe, let me click inside, $13.50, hit the tab key, and then for the overtime, project doesn't automatically do a calculation of your standard rate, so you have to calculate it if you want to do time and a half and type it in. If I want to do 20 and not go with the traditional time and a half, project isn't going to freeze up and say you can't do this. It gives you that control. So there's the second rate that I can go ahead and I'll show you in just a minute how you can assign the letter B here, the cost on tab B, to the resource that's assigned to a specific task. While all the other tasks that the resource has been assigned to, it's going to be the default here, okay? Now, another thing that we can do is that, like, let's say Writer 1 is going to have a salary increase at a specific point in time, a week or 2 into the project. So let me type in the date, 9/15/10, hit the tab key, so it accepts it. And then over here, let's say it's going to be 17.50. Or, I mean, you can type in the standard rate, or here's something else you can do. If you want to give the increase by a percentage, like let's say maybe 15%, type in plus 15 and add the percent symbol, hit the tab key, and project will automatically calculate $15 an hour plus 15%, and that's $17.25. You can also do it for the overtime rate field as well, plus, let's do, just for the sake of laughs, let's do 30%, hit the tab key, and there you go. And then when I'm finished, I can go ahead and click OK. Now, before I click OK and I start taking you around to show you the changes, because at this point in time, from the 15th on, there's going to be a change, and our costs are going to increase as long as Writer 1 is assigned to a task, from $15 to $17.25 an hour, and of course any overtime. So if I click Okie dokie, and remember, tab B is a different rate, okay? So when I click OK, let me come up here and right-click and change views and go to the Gantt chart, and right-click on the table header cell and go to the cost table, because as you recall, any changes that you make that affects a cell, in this case it's going to be the cost field, and it's going to be, well, tied to the resource Writer 1, it's going to be highlighted here. Now let's see if this makes sense. Now if you look over here in the Gantt chart, you can see that Writer 1 has been assigned to pretty much all these tasks here. Now notice that the changes have been highlighted for the summary task and also the project summary. just meaning that there are subtasks that have made some changes that affect the summary task, which makes sense. Okay, so what subtasks have those changes been applied to? Well, it's right here for modify outline. Now, when does that start, that task? Is it before or after his salary increase on September the 15th? Well, if you come over here into the Gantt chart and hover over the corresponding taskbar, you can see it starts after the salary increase on September the 15th. So obviously that's going to increase the cost for this task that this resource has been assigned to because they're charging more, okay? And also more for that task, and there would be more down here if Writer 1 was assigned to these other tasks down below, so that's where it ends. Now, if you want to talk about alternative rates, in other words, not the salary increase that happens at a certain point in time, but like for a specific task, Writer 1 is not going to be charging their standard rate, which was on tab A, as you recall in the cost rates table, but tab B, to go ahead and say, okay, this tab B rate is going to be applied of this resource to this task that they're assigned to, then let's go ahead and change views. Let's go to a view where we can see the task and the resources that are assigned to them by coming over here and right-clicking on the view bar, and let's go to task usage, because in here it has the task and below that the resources that are assigned to it. So for review with subject matter experts, if I go ahead and change the default from letter A, well, it brings up a good point. How do I change the default letter A for this resource for the standard rate to the next letter B that has a different rate? The best way for me to go ahead and do this is to insert the cost rate table column by coming up here and right-clicking on the column header to insert it and type in cost. There we go. Cost rate table, click on it, and there you go. By default, all of them are assigned the letter A, which is the default standard rate, and then for modifying an outline for Writer 1, if it's going to be a different rate, then go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow and choose B. Now if you go ahead and double-click and open up the resource assigned to that task, notice that on the General tab you can also change the cost rate table here, but I like to insert it because it's easier for me to quickly glance at it, and then if I have any questions when it comes to, increased costs, I don't have to go, when I come to this view, without seeing this column, what's the deal, and have to do a little bit more research. But when I leave it open like this, I can go, yeah, okay. That's tab B, and what is tab B? Well, I can go back to my resource sheet, pull up Writer 1's information, and be able to see the assigned costs for that rate that, as you recall, was on tab B. And that's it. So when it comes to this task here, Writer 1 is at a different cost rate than all these other tasks that he's assigned to for review with subject matter expert, or the one up above that, which is the standard rate on tab A. So if I come over here and I right-click on the view bar and go back to the resource sheet, double-click on Writer 1, I can make changes here, delete this, and say, okay, we just decided he's not going to get a salary. So if we delete, gets rid of that row, go to tab B, the standard rate for this letter B is going to be $13.50 an hour. So as we just saw, we assigned B to that resource that was assigned to that specific task. So they're getting a little bit less per hour on that task. Now, not only is this applicable to your work resources, but also your materials, like glossy paper. Just double click on that. Same thing. If you say at this point in time, effective, next week, we're going to see an increase instead of the standard 25, at least at that point in time, or up until that point in time, it was always $25 a ream. So when we assign materials before that, it'll be at 25, so it'll keep the cost up until we hit another point in time, and then it will jump up to whatever we assign in here, maybe at $35 a ream. And that way it's going to make it a lot easier for us to keep track of costs at different points in time and being able to view those changes, at least in the resource sheet view, if not by generating a report and being able to customize it and say, okay, this is what I want to see. And when we saw a jump in our costs there, well, if you want to compare baseline cost to your actual cost at specified points in time. As you recall in an earlier training video, in the budget resource video, we learned how to group our resources by types, like all the work together, the materials, and then the costs, and be able to compare that against the budget that we had for each of those different types. Now here I want to go over it again, but with a bit more information. And also, this video will have its own title, so that way you can quickly identify if this is what you want to watch, as opposed to going, let's see, there's something about grouping, what video is that? well, you can go off the keyword here, group, but it's going to be grouping cost by budget type. In any case, once you learn how to group, no matter what you're doing it by, you'll pretty much be able to get the concept and group whatever you want. So here, I want to group cost by budget type, which means I want to compare the incurred costs thus far to the budget costs. Because as you're going through the project, and let's say that you're incurring costs really fast, and your project is far off from being completed, well, that's a red flag. I don't want to run out of funding before we complete the project, in which case I can quickly go to the client and say, hey, we need more money, even though we've burned through most of the cash here. Otherwise, you're not going to get your project done. In any case, to go ahead and do this, let's come over here and right-click on the view bar and go to the resource usage view, because we're, again, going to group them by resource type. So we need all the resources together. And you've got, well, here's one type of resource, Writer 1, which is a work resource. You can scroll down here and you've got your material resources, and then there's the cost there. And then we've got our budget. Now, let me click and drag the split bar over. Right now, I just have these two fields. I want to bring in more fields, like for the budget, so I can see what budget that we set aside, because the work is not going to display the budget for the labor. So if I come up here and right-click on the column header and go down to Insert Column and type in Budget, there we go. We've got the budget work and budget costs. Now, coincidentally, the budget material is going to be found in the budget work. So when I select that, you can see down below that the materials will show up as well as the work. So you don't want to come up here and go, oh, I need to insert budget materials. It's going to only be found under budget work. So you get two birds with one stone. When you insert budget work, you get your work hours for the resource type of work, and then the materials for, again, the material resource type. Let me go ahead and come over here and right-click and insert the actuals for the work. And then let me come over here and insert a few more columns. And I'll quickly do that and bring you into the video here. Okay, here's where we're at. We've got the budget work, actual work, and work. Then we have the budget cost, actual cost, and cost. So the actuals is what we're seeing at that point in time, what's coming in, what's being completed. So you can see for Project Manager 1, of the 12 hours that he has to work on these two tasks here, he's only gotten 4 hours in. So the actuals, when he's done, when the actual matches up against the work, that means that, well, whatever he's working on is 100% completed, at least for him being assigned to that task. Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and group these by resource type so I can get all the work resources together and be able to get a summary for the work, so the summary of what we incurred so far isn't over the budget for the labor here. Okay, and as you recall in an earlier training video, this is the budget cost, even though it says budget miscellaneous. I did that so I can show you that you can type in whatever you want as long as the cost field is assigned to it as that resource type. You can name it whatever you want, okay? So that is the budget cost, and I could rename it budget cost, but I'll leave it. And then the budget labor is budget work, and then material, obviously material there, okay? So instead of coming up here and going, let's see, what hours have we incurred so far, and going 20 plus, let's see, 4, and using your fingers or a calculator, group it by resource type to get the summary for the work, so you can compare that summary of what's incurred so far against your budget. Come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Data group, click on No Group to Resource Type. There you go. Let's go ahead and scroll up. There's the first group, the Resource Type Work, and you can see that the budget is 600 hours, and the actuals that have come in, or the work that we've completed so far, is 114. And of course, if you look at the work that we have set aside for the entire project is 378 hours, which, hey, we are going to be well under the 600, unless, of course, along the way, people are just adding in more and more hours. That's why we have this budget set aside. So in case if it goes over the original plan, as long as it's not over the budget, then we're good to go. So let's go ahead and scroll down here and go to the next group, Materials. You can see down here what we budgeted in reams. And so actually we haven't completed any or entered in the actuals for the reams that have been used, but the reams have been assigned to print final and for the plain paper print draft. In any case, if the work here comes in as the actuals, we're well under the budget there. And you'll notice that we didn't get a grouping where it gave us the total of 4 reams. So that you might have to go ahead and count up. And then below that we've got our cost. So the budget is $2,000, And so far we've got the assigned cost of $1,300. We just haven't put it in as the actual here. So if this is the actual, type it in and there we go. As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to group, or what grouping is, but we did it with one criteria. Here I want to show you how you can group information by multiple criteria. And I want to do it by coming over here and right-clicking on the view bar, going to the task usage view. There we've got a list of all the tasks, and underneath each task a resource or resources assigned to it. And let's change the table by coming up here and right-clicking on the table header cell and going down to cost. So I want to be able to group costs by critical and non-critical tasks broken down by month. Come up here on the View tab, go to the Data group, click on No Group, and go down and click on New Group By. And up here, go ahead and name your group. I'm going to call it my Spiffy Critical Group, which means that when I come down here, what's the first grouping that I want it by? I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow and say it's got to be by critical, which means it's going to take all those tasks within this view and say if you're critical, you're going to be in this group. If you're not critical, you're going to be in another one. After you get sorted into those groups, then once you're within those groups, we're going to go ahead and group you by, let me type in start, by the start date. Now, when you have start selected, notice down below that you can click on define group intervals. When I select another field that isn't dealing with numbers, that allows me to go ahead and define those intervals, and you can see I can't click on it. But for the start dates, well, I do. Let me click on it and say that I want to define it, not on each value because, well, each task is going to have a different, for the most part, starting value. So none of the tasks are really going to be grouped, unless, of course, you have two tasks starting at the same time or on the same day. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow and say, let's group it by months or every 30 days. And we're going to start on August 31st, 30 days. And for the interval, we'll leave it as 1. Click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now before I click Save, notice that it's checked here to show in the menu. So when I click Save, come up here, back to the View tab, to the Data group, click on the drop-down arrow. It's in the menu, My Spiffy Critical Group. So go ahead and click on it, and it applies. Now, we've got multiple criteria here, or multiple grouping. We have the first group, whether it's critical or not. So I can click on it to collapse it, and click on this one to collapse it, and we've got the first grouping. Now, once it's grouped into critical and non-critical, you can go ahead and expand it and see the second criteria, or the inner group. So within that group, we have an any, if you will, that we've got it every 30 days by month. So from the 31st to September the 29th, there's the first month of criticals, and then here's the second month of criticals. Why would I want to do it by cost? Well, for those tasks that are critical, I can look over here in this view in the cost table and take a look and go, hey, as far as the cost goes, these are critical that we get them done on time, because if not, it's going to push the project end date out. So if we get somebody that's going to cost a bit more to complete it so it's on time, I can look at the numbers here and go, okay, is it worth the cost to justify somebody working overtime, knowing that the cost is going to go up against the baseline cost, and say, maybe that's okay. And then, of course, to go ahead and clear the group, come back up here, click on the drop-down arrow, and clear the group, and we're back to where we started. And then if you want to get rid of your groups, come back up here, click on the drop-down arrow, go to More Groups, and then come over here and click on the organizer and select your Spiffy Critical Group and delete it. Once you say yes, it's deleted from your project, but it's by default already copied over here into the global template. So every time you create a new project, your Spiffy Critical Group will be there. If you don't want it in any new project, then by all means, go ahead and delete it there to get rid of it. Okay.
Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.